Hello. So a little bit of wait time here while everybody gets on. Oh, yeah, hopefully. Let's see. Dun, dun, dun. Well, Kyle, what do you got for us while we're waiting? Can't decide on temperature. It's either hot or cold in here. I don't know.
You've been running around the last couple of minutes.
I was freezing.
Well, not much new on the training aspect for disabled individuals. Although, I guess from my standpoint, did just complete 1.15 mile swim in the lake last Saturday. Although I've been taught by a lot of able-bodied swimmers to count your strokes, so you kind of know your distance. And if I counted my strokes right, I was closer to 1.5 miles because I can't swim a straight line.
1.5 miles.
As opposed to a mile.
Crazy.
Less than 1.25 miles, but completed it. So with the help of one of the staff members, they're out there watching the swimmers and they're in kayaks. So I had one kind of herding me back on course. And then we had the county sheriff, the water patrol out there, and they were ahead of me with their lights flashing. So I was able to follow them on the way in, but completed it.
I was going to say they should have been ahead of you if they're in a boat.
Yeah.
I mean, if you can outswim the boat,
Yeah. Well, there were
I mean-
about 80 people that did outswim the boat because they got done before me. But learned a lot that it's a lot tougher to swim that kind of distance when your visual markers are 1/2 mile away as opposed to 100 yards away. And that's the first time I'd ever tried to swim that kind of distance with, all at one time. But already looking forward to next year. Came out of it feeling really good, very wobbly. I had some assistance from the director of the swim, who's also the director, the aquatics director at the local Y Center. And she brought my crutches out to me, and she had them out early. And I was probably, if I would have stood up, I was probably in a good foot of water. I said, no, I'm going to keep going until, it's like ankle deep. So I couldn't even swim anymore. I couldn't do my strokes. So I was kind of crawling on the bottom, but
try foot of water you're hit with your arms.
I was kind of crawling, I had one leg and so, but I figured, I stand up, I could definitely feel the wobbliness in my legs. So having my crutches and having her help me, took me about 15 minutes longer than I anticipated, but I think that's partly because I was way off course. And that just gives me something to strive for next year. But it absolutely amazes me. Of course, I was the only amputee swimming, probably the only person with this disability. I did finish ahead of a few able-bodied folks, but there were some 70-year-olds that beat me, and there were some 12-year-olds that beat me. So it's like, okay, fine. I know how I got to train harder.
You're catching up with the 70-year-olds, though.
I would hope
20-year-old that you think you are.
No, I'm not, but well, my brain thinks I'm still 20. I'm out there swimming, one leg, that just shows that even with a disability, you can do just about anything.
It's true. It's true. I just want to remind you that you're not the 20-year-old that we used to be.
When I was 20, I'd never even thought I could swim a mile.
No, exactly. That's what's so impressive. I keep telling you this. It's so amazing because if it's a 1/2 mile, a mile, 99% of the able-bodied don't even think that that's even doable.
Yeah. Well, and of course, each disability is different. At least I have one functioning leg. Somebody with multiple sclerosis, muscular dystrophy may have absolutely no ability to kick. And even though for an able-bodied, a lot of your swimming is upper body, trying to ask somebody that has absolutely no kick to swim that distance might be asking too much, but that shouldn't stop anybody from trying to swim in pool. You could do 50 yards at a time. I mean, there are disabled games where you swim in a pool 25 or 50 yards. And even if you have absolutely no function in your legs, go for it.
Sure.
And if you're an above or below knee, you even have more kick than I do. Now, admittedly, the staff at the local swim here let me use a little rec therapy flipper, which obviously helped. Otherwise, I think I'd still be out there swimming because that little flipper makes a world of difference.
Well, again, as we've talked over time, pretty much everybody is willing to adapt things to make it, even if it's not a true adaptive sport yet.
Yeah.
They will adapt it.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
I mean, you've experienced that.
And I know a lot of, now my goal is to train harder for some triathlons. As a matter of fact, here in Battle Creek, there's a short triathlon in July next year. There's another one in August by Grand Rapids that I know some folks that do it. When you look at the webpage, you don't really see a disabled division. But, okay, I was the first amputee that swam our lake and who knows how long. So why couldn't I be the first?
I say ever, because nobody
Yeah.
has record that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
at least over the 10 years that the aquatic instructor that she's been running the show. But also that means if I'm the first amputee to swim 1.15 mile, or for me, 1.5 miles, why can't I be the first one to do the local triathlon? It's a sprint, so it's only 500-yard swim, but it's the 12-mile bike, which I got to do a lot more training on that. And then it's a 5K run. For me, the transition is going to be a little difficult. Where do I set my crutches? The transition from the swim to the bike, from the bike to the run. For an able-bodied, they just hop up and change in shoes and run.
So if anybody's done one of these, because somebody in the world
Oh yeah,
has done
definitely.
this.
Yeah.
So maybe you have some tips for us.
Yeah. Well, there are going to be some tips coming up in the Paralympics because the para-tri, disabled triathlon, is part of the Olympics.
Well, we love to get the comments back.
Oh yeah, definitely.
People
I can
telling
always
us
learn
what they think.
Yeah, I can
For
always
sure.
learn.
That's good.
Um,
Maybe they'll just let me stand there and hand out to stuff.
Well, for me, one of the quick things is because I don't have to change my shoes, because, you got a bike shoe and a running shoe. I don't have to change my shoes. It's all upper body. So, that'll save a little bit of
So
time.
you got an advantage.
I got an advantage.
It's actually an advantage.
But now it's start doing some more training. I have the rollers for indoor work. Now I just got to figure out where to put the hand cycle bike and the racing wheelchair inside the house so I can hop between the two.
Oh, true. Yeah,
and still
yeah,
swim,
good point.
still do indoor swimming. But I've got able-bodied friends that have done triathlons, so I've been talking to them, and of course I'll be watching the Paralympics, and just another goal.
For sure. Absolutely.
And eventually, besides the triathlon, why not do a 10K, a half marathon, doing the racing wheelchair, or a duathlon where I do the bike and the run, something. There's so many different things out there that you adapt to them. It's adaptive sports for a reason, because you can adapt yourself to do whatever's out there,
Absolutely.
Well, some of the things that you do with your workouts, I have to adapt. You don't adapt for me, I adapt for you. So
we adapt a little bit for them. Don't let them kid you. But most generally, yeah, that's true, because there'll be some in a group setting that it's like a one-leg balance exercise and you're already there.
I've got practice.
You do have practice on that one.
And the cool thing is that a lot of your workouts could be done for somebody that's wheelchair bound too, because of the machines.
Sure.
It'd take them maybe a few seconds to transfer from the wheelchair to the machine. But cable crosses, things like that could be done right in the wheelchair.
Sure.
I know when I was first in rehab at the VA, went to the fitness center, and at that time I was still basically wheelchair bound, but I was able to transfer from the wheelchair to the machines and use them. So even if you're wheelchair bound, you're used to transferring. And most gyms that I've been into, or fitness centers, there's enough space where you can wheel up with the chair, transfer over to the machine, do your exercise, transfer back, wheel around. And there's absolutely nothing preventing any of us that are disabled or adaptively abled, whatever we want to call it, from working out, whether it's, with the adaptive equipment or doing resistance training, even your body weight. There's a lot of stuff you can do right in the wheelchair because a lot of the machines are already sitting.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
so you can do a
definitely.
lot of stuff with body weight, dumbbells, the resistance bands. Funny, decided to call them resistance bands. As opposed to
Resistance
bungees.
bands, okay.
You know, but and that's what we've tried to show in some of the other videos, different ways to work out with different modalities, different equipment as a disabled individual. And we can always use videos or comments from any of our subscribers, any folks watching this, because I've only been doing this 4 years. And there are folks out there that have been doing this 30, 40 years. You know, so I can always learn. And I know it's nice to be able to share among our community how other people have trained, different sports that they competed in, whether it be a team sport or the individual sports. You know,
Absolutely, yeah. And of course, that's what we're trying to cover is a lot of those different things. And also some of the other, even for the non-athlete, you know, the cardiovascular risk that you've talked about, you
Right,
know.
right.
What are some of those?
well,
Tell these
well,
people to
first of all, you
remind
know,
them in case they don't know.
through my research and having worked in the medical field for 20 years, disabled individuals are at a much higher risk for cardiovascular disease. Whether you're wheelchair bound or an amputee or any of the chronic diseases, the neurodegenerative neuromuscular diseases like multiple sclerosis, muscular dystrophy, et cetera. Of course, a lot of that is that we are less mobile. So it's harder to get out and walk, harder to get out and run, but you can still do cardiovascular work. You're in a wheelchair. You can get, we've shown in other videos, you can get on a bicycle, you can get on elliptical. There's other machines that like seated steppers that you can still do cardiovascular on. So, but not only are we at risk because we're less mobile, a lot of the disease states that we have, say multiple sclerosis, muscular dystrophy, et cetera, are chronic inflammation as well. And chronic inflammation leads to more cardiovascular disease. They have linked some of the diet, some of the nutrition problems, so we have to be more cognizant of that. Also, that if you do have an injury, say you're wheelchair bound, ending up with a pressure sore, you're going to end up in the hospital. So get that treated. Then you go into rehab. But most of the rehab centers are not set up to do cardiovascular for someone with a disability. They're going to get your strength back so you can go home, but we're still lacking on the cardiovascular. So we have to find ways to work even harder as a adaptive athlete, as a disabled individual, to help prevent those cardiovascular problems, whether it's vascular. Of course, as an amputee, I've already lost a quarter about of my lymphatic system. So I always have to worry about edema in the leg. And then we add in the other components, say like phantom limb pain. That can really flare up and make you not want to work out. So we're at risk even there that if you have chronic pain, whether it's chronic or phantom limb pain or another pain from the other disabilities, whatever we want to call them, you're not going to want to work out. So we have to find ways to overcome that as well. And folks that have these diseases from birth, hopefully their doctors talking to them, their medical providers talking to them that you need to really be conscious that you're already at risk because of the disease. You're already at more risk because you're wheelchair bound. So we have to work even harder to prevent any cardiovascular problems. And that's everything from, God forbid, heart attacks to strokes, to peripheral vascular disease. So, and Troy, I think, is getting some information we were gonna try.
Yeah, we've got an expert that's coming on and they are tied up right now. So, you know, I don't think we'll have trouble covering some topics. And if we can get her on.
Well, and we've also got to remember that there are a lot of treatments besides medication out there that will allow a disabled individual or an able-bodied to continue training. I'm fortunate enough to go to an acupuncturist. There's massage therapy, and Troy here has been a massage therapist for decades.
That's true.
So massage therapy is something. So don't always think, oh, I got to take a medication, or I can't work out because I don't want to take medication. Look at what we want to call naturopathic or homeopathic massage therapy. It works for everybody, whether you're an amputee or not. Acupuncture has been helping some tendonitis in my shoulder, but also it's helping with the phantom limb pain. And a lot of folks will say, well, they're not always covered by insurance. Actually, insurances are starting to come around and realize that these are good treatment options, especially now when we're in an opioid crisis and we don't want to always be using pain medicine or even trying to get away from the anti-inflammatories, because those have problems. So let's start looking at other things. And there are a lot of options out there. And we can't forget, you know, just meditation. Through physical therapy, there's things like dry needling. So there's a lot of other modalities, and I'm sure some of our viewers or subscribers may have other modalities I haven't even thought of. I've been a fan of acupuncture for quite a while and have looked into it. But when I had the opportunity to get involved with it and use it as a treatment, I love it. Anything interesting from your end?
You know, I was going to say, actually I was going to say, you know, everybody has an excuse of why not to exercise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
It
yeah.
doesn't matter what your situation is.
Yeah.
We can all come up with an excuse. So you've got to figure out, maybe that's a whole deal that we talk about, like all the different ways to trick your mind to go to the gym or be it at home. I mean, if you have a
Yeah.
home facility or
Yeah.
you're just using the exercise bands or bungees, as you love
Yeah.
to call them,
Yeah.
resistance bands. But yeah, you know, you think about that, it's not just people with
Disabilities.
you
Yeah.
name the condition.
Yeah.
Hey, look at,
Yeah.
we've got superstar, international lecturer, international best-selling author, and guru of all things. Unfortunately, one of my biggest, most important mentors in all things.
Who I have heard an awful lot about. So, Casey, pleasure to meet you.
So this is
Yes, a pleasure to meet you.
Yeah.
I am not on a laptop at the moment, but if you give me a second, I can get there. I'm in a destination for a wedding today, and
What's a Saturday? Get married on Saturday.
yeah. So
well,
one
good to have you
second.
on. Do your thing.
Yeah.
We were just
Yeah.
talking about all kinds of things and preparing for your arrival. So
Okay. Excellent. Okay, here we are.
Now I feel like
That's better.
Hey, there we go.
Trying to get the Zoom call and the video going. I think we got it.
Oh, we got it.
That is better.
Excellent.
Well, Casey, introduce yourself to our viewers, our subscribers. Tell us what your background is and why is it that Troy and I are such a big fan of yours.
Well, I have been in the health and wellness industry my entire life. Of course, I was a competitive athlete all through high school and college. Although I ended up going into law and business, I always stayed connected to the fitness industry. And Troy and I know each other through the fitness industry, through a mutual friend who had one of my weight loss franchises. But at the end of the day, over the last decade, I have gotten into all natural wellness, and I now own a biohacking center in Eastern Tennessee where we use all natural bioenergetic and nutritional modalities to help people not only improve their overall health and wellness, often that have reached a roadblock with traditional therapies. But we are trying to help people perform better, even if they are already healthy, and doing it again all naturally. And one of those products that you are very much a fan of is called the BEMER. And it's not a car.
No, no.
No, it
Love the
stands for
BEMER.
yeah, it stands for bioelectromagnetic energy regulation, and that's a big mouthful. Basically, what it means is it's a medical device, class 2 cleared medical device that you use in your home or at a location like mine if somebody has it. But it's technically designed to be able to use in home where you lie on it fully clothed, 8 minutes twice a day. And what it does one thing very well, the best in the world. It increases and supports the body's natural microcirculatory process. And of course, what that does is it creates a domino or cascading effect whereby when you have better blood flow, you have more oxygen and nutritional delivery and more metabolic waste and carbon dioxide removal. And basically what that means is that you are going to have better energy, better performance, stamina, recovery, and that always impacts things like your sleep, how sharp you feel mentally. I bought it for my mother 9 years ago, and it completely changed her life. And so even though I thought I was healthy and didn't need it, I eventually got on it because, of course, it was in my home where she lived with me. And I haven't looked back. I'm going to be 60 in a couple of weeks, and I feel better at 60 than I did at 50. And that's, you know, that's not typical for the average person. So anyway, that's a quick overview of that. We can certainly get into more of the details of the microcirculatory process as we kind of unfold or unpack our conversation today. It is an important thing to understand why a device like the BEMER is so important. And the answer is, in a very short sentence, as we age, our microcirculatory process naturally declines. And therefore, that's why we don't recover as fast, we don't feel as good, we don't sleep as well, all of those things. So,
And Casey, before you joined us, Troy and I were talking about other modalities to help disabled individuals as well as able-bodieds to continue working out, get beyond that aspect where they're tired, they're fatigued, they're in pain. And I know from a personal standpoint, using the BEMER has been one of the best modalities for me to help stop the phantom limb pain. I had been discussing acupuncture, and there again, it's the all natural. I love being able to do treatments like the BEMER, the acupuncture, to help stop the phantom limb pain, help prevent after Troy's workouts, and you know, they get that post residual workout soreness the next day.
yeah,
And being able to use the BEMER, I don't get that. Troy can train me as hard as he wants. I may feel a little worn down, and you're right also with the sleep. If you're not sleeping right, you're not going to want to work out because you're fatigued and you're tired. So
that's right.
And now I know that I've talked to other individuals, and I know that there are other devices like the BEMER out there.
Yeah.
What
Yep.
separates the BEMER from the other ones that are out there that if you Google this kind of device, and if I, and to help the folks out that are watching, I know that BEMER is called a pulse frequency. It has a pulse frequency, which is what enables it to improve your blood flow. It works on the microvascular, decreases inflammation.
Yep.
So what separates the BEMER from the other ones?
Sure, that's a great question, and I always encourage people to do their research just like I did. I took 30 days. I mean, I went deep as an attorney. I'm totally skeptical, right? So when my friend started telling me all of these benefits he was getting, I was like, yeah, and it regrows a finger too, right? You know, come on. So
My leg hasn't started to grow back, but I'm still hoping.
yeah, you know, so anyway, so first of all, let's just step back and kind of close the circle of what you started there. Pulsed electromagnetic frequency devices, PEMF devices. A PEMF device is any device that's using a waveform. Won't go down that rabbit hole, but there's many different ones, square tooth, sinusoidal, you know, sawtooth, trapezoidal. But any device that emits a waveform that is emitted against the human body to create a physiological effect. Now, people might be familiar with things like a bone stimulator, right? For people that have bones that aren't healing well. Biofeedback for pain management with a PEMF device. That's been approved by the FDA. Stress management approved by the FDA. So PEMF devices at their base level all have a physiological effect on the human body. Now, depending on the waveform and depending upon the frequency input, think volume, the amount coming in, will impact what effect that pulsed electromagnetic field has on the human body. Something like a bone stimulator is using super high frequencies, where something like the BEMER is the only low frequency, low output device that has been scientifically proven to increase microcirculation. And there is the answer to the question, what makes BEMER different? All PEMF devices are going to increase blood flow because they are a stimulator, right? Now, some devices you feel, like if you've ever used a TENS unit, it's like,
Exactly.
whoa,
Yeah.
don't turn that down, right? It's like super high. Where other devices, like a BEMER, literally, and I'm gonna make a statement here that maybe some people won't like go like, wow, that's really kind of interesting. The less you feel of the BEMER, quite frankly, the healthier you are.
Yeah.
My mom got on the BEMER at 82, and the first thing she said was, "Ooh, it's warming. My hands are tingling," right? Well, the reason for that is because it was increasing microcirculation that wasn't working effectively. To this day, I still don't feel anything when I get on the BEMER unless I've injured myself, right? I sprained my ankle, it's swelling, I go and boom, 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 boom. But otherwise, I don't feel anything. So what makes BEMER different is that it's not just stimulating macrocirculation, arteries and veins, which all PEMF is going to do. It's because it stimulates muscles. It actually is stimulating microcirculation. And this is where, if I could take another 2 minutes, I think understanding microcirculation versus macrocirculation would be really important for your audience. Would that be okay?
I'd like to just jump in that I'm glad
Sure.
you brought up the TENS unit, because a lot of athletes, whether you're able-bodied or disabled, have probably had a TENS unit treatment. As an athlete, you're going to have injuries. So I know it's not a correct comparison, but a lot of folks have had a TENS unit to work on an injury. That's after you've had the injury. Whereas the BEMER, we're trying to prevent that injury also by using it daily. We're improving the blood flow, so it may help prevent the injury in the first place, which is what we're all about. So
For sure. I mean, look, if you do something silly, right? You know, you go try to, you know, just lift something over your head and you strain your back. I mean, you know, that's always a possibility, especially as we age. But the reality is that the reason that BEMER helps to really, in my opinion, this is my personal opinion, I can't medically say, I'm not making a claim, but I know that the BEMER, through increased blood flow, has increased my flexibility level enormously. When I started with the BEMER, I couldn't even touch my knees with my hands because of a low back issue. I had L4, L5 compressed, bulging, and degenerative. Now I can put my palms on the floor. So I'm 9 years older, and yet I am so much more flexible. Why? Well, guess what? If you don't get oxygen to tissue, it's going to decline in its ability to maintain motility, right? So, and this is where having a quick conversation about the circulatory process is really important. So you've got arteries, veins, and you've got capillaries. The arteries bring blood out of the heart, and the veins return it to the organs to be filtered, reoxygenated, renourished, and then sent back out again. What most people, and I certainly didn't understand this. I mean, look, I grew up in a medical family. My dad was a surgeon, my mom was a nurse, but I went to business school and law school. So I knew nothing about physiology. What's interesting to note is that only 24%, 26% of your body's circulatory system are arteries and veins. 11.5 are arteries, 14.5 are veins. The other 74% are these microvessels that are 1/3 to 1/7 the diameter of a human strand of hair. It is only in the microvessels that go to all the tissues, the organs, right? It is only there that the magic of the exchange happens. That's where oxygen is delivered. That's where nutrition is delivered. That's where carbon dioxide and metabolic waste is removed. What is even more astounding, aside from that statistic, is to understand that microcirculation is autonomic. What does that mean? It means it happens independently of your heartbeat or your respiratory rate. So you can be in extraordinarily good shape, and I'll make gross generalizations here, and a guy typically drops dead of a widowmaker or a heart attack, or has a heart attack, no symptoms whatsoever ahead of time, runs 5 miles 3 times a week. How did that happen? I can't believe it, right? We've all said that. John, you gotta be kidding me, right? And that's because he had an interruption or a disruption in his microcirculatory process, because that process is hormonal. That autonomic process is hormonal. Now, in women, it's often expresses itself in cold hands and feet. Those that, of course, that's a little bit nicer than a heart attack, but other things actually, aside from age, cause this microcirculatory process to decline. Overweight, obesity, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, blood sugar dysregulation, right? Think about a diabetic. Diabetic starts to lose toes very often later in life. Why? Microcirculatory process isn't working. And therefore, the oxygen isn't reaching the tissue, the metabolic waste is not being removed. So what's super important to understand, and this is clinically proven, double-blind, peer-reviewed study, where all pulsed electromagnetic field devices are going to stimulate the muscles that surround the big vessels, BEMER is the only device that has been proven to create the microcirculation. And therefore, to answer your question in a very long roundabout way, that's what makes BEMER so extraordinary. Now, with adaptive athletes, and BEMER has worked extensively in Europe with individuals that have limbs that are been either through war or through other injuries or genetic issues, have lost limbs. There's been a lot of studies showing that, especially if you've got someone who's, say, a paraplegic, who doesn't move around, okay, you've still got those limbs. Well, if muscle isn't working and blood flow isn't working well, we're going to have potential wound healing, decubituses from sitting or staying in one area too long. So the BEMER is actually going to help support healthier blood flow in those particular situations. So aside from recovery and performance from an adaptive athlete's perspective, we're just talking about good overall health implications.
And from a medical standpoint, I've been a physician assistant over 20 years, and plenty of research and plenty of clinical knowledge that adaptive athletes or folks with disabilities are at a much higher risk of cardiovascular disease, partly due to the decreased mobility. So exactly what you said, we're not moving around as easy as an able-bodied. So
Yep.
what can we do to get the blood flowing? The BEMER helps. Plus certain diseases, what they may call neuromuscular or neurodegenerative, multiple sclerosis, muscular dystrophy,
ALS, yeah.
already have increased inflammation in the body due to that disease state. So there again, what does the BEMER do? Helps decrease that inflammation. And you were speaking of studies, and I remember when Troy and I first started talking about the BEMER, I did my research, and I actually ran across two studies. One where the BEMER was used for arthritis in the knee, and the other one low back pain. And both studies had such dramatic improvement in the patient-reported pain and discomfort. Why wouldn't somebody want to use this? Not only if you have an injury or a pain, you recover quicker, but also to help prevent them. Like you said, the flexibility. And I'm glad you brought up the pressure sores. Any disabled individual that spends a lot of time in a wheelchair, that's their biggest concern, is a pressure ulcer. Well, then you end up in a hospital, and after a hospital, you go to rehab. So all of a sudden, you've lost all your conditioning. The BEMER helps the healing process because it improves blood flow, it improves that oxygenation. So it may not only help prevent the pressure ulcers, but it will definitely help treat them. So I'm glad to hear that there are, and I know Troy and I have talked about the BEMERs being used for professional athletes and Olympics, and I imagine it's probably even used by Paralympians. So if
For sure.
elite athletes are using it, not only to improve their training, their workouts, their overall health, why wouldn't somebody like myself that's kind of way lower on that scale use the same thing? And like I said, I have personal experience. I know what it does for me.
Yeah.
Speak highly of it.
And so a few things that you brought up there. So first of all, the BEMER became into existence because of a finding that won a huge science award in 1998. 3 medical doctors discovered that when you take a sinusoidal wave and you administer it against the human body, the body naturally produces more nitric oxide. So a very curious scientist said, well, if this standard sinusoidal wave can increase nitric oxide, which of course all diseases are at their root inflammatory, how could we improve that? And of course, they first started to try to dial it up more, right? Well, then you get the tens unit reaction. That's actually counterproductive for that. And he ultimately created the base BEMER signal, which is a multidimensional sinusoidal wave layered on top of one another 40 times with an ascending and then a quick drop-off fashion. That initial wave did substantially increase nitric oxide. However, that signal only lasted 1 hour in the human body. So subsequent patents have made it so the residual impact of BEMER is extraordinary. And just to
but that is something Troy has always talked to me about, and what I've seen on my research is that the BEMER, the pulse frequency, the waveform, is a patented waveform, correct? So nobody else, none of the other modalities out there, the other folks that use the pulse frequency, nobody can use the same frequency and waveform that BEMER uses, correct?
Well, so there's a couple of things there. And first of all, I do want your audience to know that because you're a physician's assistant, you can say words like treatment. People like Troy and I, we say sessions.
Yeah.
or therapy,
Yep.
okay? But right now, I mean, the BEMER base patent is more than 20 years old. So could other people try to use that patent? They could if they wanted to figure it out. But here's the thing. That wave only lasted 1 hour in the human body. The BEMER signal in the double-blind peer-reviewed study that was published in the Journal of Complementary and Integrative Medicine showed that BEMER actually had a residual impact of a still 13, and at its peak, 29% improvement. But even after 24 hours after all therapy was done, it's still at a 13% improvement in blood flow characteristics, where all the others were down at 2% or less, okay? So it's the
Let me interject on
additional patents that really make BEMER. It's got 4 patents in it, and it's really 4 different devices in one box, but we'll come back to that.
You have brought up the double blind from a medical standpoint. Let me let some of our viewers understand what a double blind study is. That is what's considered the gold standard, the best you can do from a medical standpoint. Neither the patient, the person receiving the therapy or treatment, knows if they're getting the placebo,
right.
or fake one, or the actual treatment, nor does the provider or the person given. So a double blind study is the best you can get from a medical standpoint. And the fact that BEMER does the double blind studies just says that, hey, this is the top of the line. You know, you're getting one of the best treatments out there because it's been studied the right way.
Exactly. And again, just to kind of finish one of your comments that I think is important to know, we have here of course, in Europe, BEMER's used in every single area of medicine. But here in the United States, we actually installed a BEMER into assisted living place, specifically because of the decubitus issue. And so not only do 8-minute therapy sessions, and in those institutions, they're only able to get to the patients once a day usually, but maybe even not once a day, but not only do they help keep the tissue in good order and not breaking down into a decubitus, but BEMER has localized therapies as well. So a BEMER has a bee body, looks like a yoga mat, and a bee bed that goes into your bed that allows you to do daily wellness sessions as well as a special session at night. But it also has these localized smaller applicators that you can specifically use for a limb, you know, a back, a specific area.
Shoulder.
And it has red light therapy and blue light therapy, so that if somebody does end up with a tissue that starts to really look like it's going to break down, red light therapy, and ours is actually now red purple, is amazing for helping support wound healing.
Amazing stuff. Amazing stuff.
Casey, we might have to have you back because we're running out of time.
And that's my fault.
That's
I
okay.
apologize.
No problem. I don't want it to cut us off, basically.
Sure.
So anything that you'd like to wrap up with that we haven't covered to this point? You've covered a lot.
You know, look, BEMER is an investment, and obviously I'm not trying to sell anybody there a BEMER. They don't know me from a hole in the wall. And say this, that the vast majority of people, I've had my BEMER for 9 years. So when I look at the investment of my BEMER over the course of that time, when you're doing your research and considering whether to bring a BEMER into your life, just look at it with the right perspective. I know that you guys both would say it was the best investment you've ever made. I know I say that for sure. And just get the science. Get the science. Don't just go with the Google search where you're going to see a competitor say, you know, oh, we're as good as a BEMER, but less expensive or whatever.
What I love is that as an adaptive athlete, we have certain issues that an able body doesn't have. We're going to have different pain. We're going to have pressure ulcers. We're going to have increased inflammation. We're less mobile. The BEMER helps prevent problems as well as treat the problems. And you brought up some of the great things. You know, Troy and I were talking about the problems that we have working out, the soreness, the fatigue. BEMER helps treat those. Now, like you said, people are going to Google it, but if any of our viewers have had experience with other makers of a pulse frequency other than the BEMER, let us know what you think. Send us comments. If you want to try a BEMER, you can contact us. We can get you in touch with Casey or Troy and talk you through it. Troy and I both have experience. Casey obviously has lots of experience. I swear by it. And from a medical standpoint, I'm glad you brought up the assisted living facility because I go into a lot of assisted living facilities. I'm always struggling with those folks with the pressure ulcers, because if pressure ulcer comes, I got to bring in the wound nurse, and then all of a
And
sudden.
you're gonna run out of time, so I would suggest you
yeah.
close this
Yeah.
out and have me back.
Thank
Would
you.
love to, Casey.
All
Thank you
right.
very much for your time.
So
and your info.
appreciate
Yep.
you being here with us, and we
course.
will talk soon. And
Absolutely. We'll get some questions from your viewers.
Look
that's
forward to
right.
it. Thanks again, Casey.
Have a great
Okay.
day. Thank you.
Ciao.
See you guys.
You have a great weekend.